Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your co-host, Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC 224, Amanda Nunes versus Raquel Pennington. And Shaq, it's going down this weekend, UFC 224, another pay-per-view, this time in Brazil. And let's do the fucking thing, man.
Yeah, man, this card's pretty much stacked from top to bottom. I mean, you got a combination of everything. We got, diaper play Albini. We got that little fraud McKenzie and her fake accent. I mean, we got like a Bellator main event with Vitor and Lyoto. You know what I'm saying? So, in that main event, man, I got a weird feeling. Not necessarily about the fight, but these chicks are very familiar with each other and each other's girlfriends. So, I think Blues are still gonna have a good time afterwards.
Oh, I heard the stories about what went down at ATT with those four, so we'll definitely talk about that a little bit in the main event. But real quick, before we break down this card, our boy and Best Fight Pick sponsored athlete, Emmanuel El Matador Sanchez, he went out there on Paramount Network repping the Best Fight Picks logo. Now, we both knew he was going to win, but he went out there and won in the first round with a standing arm triangle. I can't recall the last time I saw a standing arm triangle in pro MMA, and Manny Sanchez just punched his ticket to a title shot.
Yeah, hopefully Bellator doesn't fuck him over, but yeah, I mean, he that was expected. I mean, I thought it was going to be an easy contest, and he handled Cecilia exactly the way he should have.
Yeah, 100%, and in honor of Manny Sanchez's big victory, we're going to be extending our promo code Matador for 15% off any package up until UFC 224. After UFC 224, we're not using the Matador code, so go ahead and take advantage of it. We got 2 consensus max bets this week. One of them is still nicely priced, so you know the deal when we have consensus max bets on the line. And Shaq, before we break down this card, man, Darren Till posted some sparring footage of him and one of his sparring partners, and he beat the fuck out that boy, and a lot of people had an issue with it because they felt like he was kind of being a bully a little bit. I kind of found it a little bit entertaining. We don't know the circumstance. We don't know if that was the 13th round of a total war, and it is what it is. But, based off that 10-second clip, people are saying that guy doesn't belong in there with him, and we really don't know the circumstances. So were you bothered with Darren Till posting that footage, or was it just a routine, entertainment?
Because no one really knows the facts. I mean, look, I mean, this is MMA. There's a lot of amateurs and kids that get paid to get fucked up in that cage. You know what I'm saying? I honestly feel like that's probably not the first time that's happened, and I feel like, I mean, after he got hit with one of those shots, he was shaking his head, like he was nodding his head yes. So I think that's a normal thing. I mean, this is the fight business, you know what I'm saying? Some people believe in certain training methods and certain people believe in others. So, I mean, look at AKA. They pretty much fight in there, you know what I'm saying? So I really didn't give 2 shits about it, to be honest. I think that's something that happens on the normal, and that it probably, I feel like, that's their training methods. I feel like, they want Darren Till to be a turned-on motherfucker in that cage, and to do that, he needs to fuck people up on a daily basis. So I really didn't care.
Yeah, I personally didn't have an issue with it either because, I mean, if we're going to sit here and cry, that means that he shouldn't be posting any more of those videos. And, bro, I want to see more of that footage. It was pretty damn entertaining. So, yeah, I had zero
I remember in Pacific, back when Rafael dos Anjos was champion and he was training at Kings MMA, he was sparring with looked like a normal white guy. The guy didn't even look like a fighter, to be honest. RDA had on boxing gloves and had him full mounted, smashing his head in. So, I think it's just certain gym cultures have certain methods and other gym cultures have certain other ones. So.
This is very true. So before we break down this card start to finish, make sure you go to bestfightpicks.com, use the promo code Matador to save 15% off any package. And Shaq, here we go. Let's do this whole card because first up in the middleweight division, we got Markus Maluko Perez. He's minus 325. The comeback on James Boknovic is plus 265. Now, the last time we broke down a card in Brazil, I was trying to give Brazil a little bit of credit, but man, did they prove me wrong because they don't even have hot water for the guys to cut weight. The weight situation with Perez. So, I was trying to be like, but bro, Machida versus Phil Davis was in Brazil in the American one, but it turns out there really are some dirty tactics there. Now, the reason I bring that up is because my boy James Boknovic, I saw him on the regional scene getting dropped by guys that are 4-14. Now we're flying the kid out to Brazil to fight the very tough Markus Perez. Who you got in this matchup?
Yeah, I'm gonna take Perez in this one. I think Boknovic. I think he's a case of, he was just the best jobber out on the local scene, and he got the call. So I don't think he is gonna win a fight in the UFC. I think he's he's a tough guy, but I think he's a local scene fighter. I don't think he's a UFC fighter. Like I said, I just think he was the best jobber out of all those dudes in Milwaukee. Like you said, he's getting dropped by 3-13 guys. 15, the typical Friday night jobber that takes it out every Friday night. So I'm going to go with Perez in this one, even though Perez did take a severe ass whooping against Eric Anders. That was against Eric Anders. He also did take Anders down 2 times, and he is small for on 185, but I'll tell you right now, he can't make 170. And I think he's going to spook Boknovic. I think the second this fight hits the mat, I see a submission within the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, one thing we got to note is that James Boknovic will have an 8-inch reach advantage in this matchup, but also in his last fight against Trevin Giles, he had quite the reach advantage there too, Shaq.
Yeah, he's 6'4", 81-inch reach, but, you got to know how to use that range. And I just think that, he's a first-round finisher. All his fights in the first round. The one time he did go out the first round, he ended up on a stretcher. So, I think he's a tough kid, but I just don't think he's ready for the UFC.
If you go back and watch that fight with Trevin Giles, devastating knockout, absolutely vicious. And now they're flying the kid out to Brazil. And, look, like we already mentioned, on the regional scene, he's getting dropped by guys that are 4-14, and that's no exaggeration. My boy Rashad Brooks is 4-14. He's getting dropped by Eddie Lara, who, like you mentioned, is the jobber that, takes a fight every Friday night and takes that L. So these are the kind of guys that are having success against James Boknovic. So with Markus Perez, look, he took down Eric Anders twice, like you mentioned. He attacked the submission, and, I speak with Eric Anders regularly, and Eric said the submission wasn't in deep at all. But, when you have a football neck like Eric Anders, I wouldn't expect it to be. But with a guy like James Boknovic, who's just a tall, goofy guy, I do think Markus is going to have a lot of success, and I see it being a finish as well. So I'm going to go with the favorite here, Markus Perez, for the victory. Now, next up in the welterweight division, this is a very good matchup. We got Ramazan Emeev. He's minus 220. The comeback on Alberto Mina is plus 180. I love this fight, man. Both of these guys are absolute warriors. Who you give the edge to here?
Yeah, man. Both of these guys have cashed for me in the past. And my boy Alberto, when he fought Yoshihiro Akiyama back in the day, even though everyone thought it was controversial, I was glad to take the win. But and my boy Ramazan did exactly what I needed him to do against Alves, and now he's making that cut to 170. So, it's kind of, we really don't see that these days. We see guys moving up, not down. So, do I have my concerns about him dropping to 170? No, not really, because Ramazan strikes me as a consummate professional. You know what I'm saying? He is very experienced, 2-time M1 global champion, very as tested as you can get for a guy with only one UFC fight. I like to call him the tie-up master because in that clinch, Ramazan will drain that cock on you all day and win on points, and because his tie-ups are just that good. And Alberto Mina, man, it seems like he's he's coming off another 2-year layoff.
Exactly.
Something like that. 2-year layoff. The thing is, he's always coming off a layoff. So I don't know if I should put that much stock into it, but the thing is, he is getting older and older and older. And coming off these layoffs after layoffs, eventually, especially him being undefeated, eventually you're going to lose a fight. So I am going to go with Ramazan here. I do think Alberto needs to finish him. In Brazil, just the way Ramazan's style is, I just see him being in control a lot on that fence, sucking out that energy of Alberto Mina. And then I just think he needs to stay conscious. We know Alberto's going to try a lot of wild, crazy shit. We remember that shit show Anzai fight. And he's got a wild techniques. The kid's undefeated, so he's no slouch, but I do think Ramazan will pull out a decision here.
It's funny you say the kid's undefeated because he's in his mid-30s. But, Alberto Mina, I'll tell you what, for a guy that's always coming off a layoff, he's very exciting. He's very well-rounded. Obviously, we know about his jiu-jitsu black belt, but in the UFC, he's been going out there and knocking dudes out. And the fight that he had against a grappler in Akiyama, he showed that if he wants to keep the fight standing, he can keep it standing because we know Akiyama's got that judo background. But here against Emeev, like you already mentioned, and you mentioned this the last time we broke down an Emeev fight because we did cash that bet against Sam Alvey at plus 100. You called him a tie-up master. And I couldn't say it better myself, man, because if you go back and you watch some of Ramazan Emeev's past fights, this is a guy that paid his dues before he got to the UFC. This is a guy that already had those 5-round wars in Russia. He went out there with my boy Vitali. They had a serious knock. And now he's in the UFC, and it's not, a case like James Boknovic where, you're getting dropped by 4-14 jobbers and you don't even belong. Ramazan's paid those dues, so for him to take this step up in competition against Mina, it's really no big deal. You can already go ahead and throw Ramazan in there with the top 20 guys, and I think he'd perform well. I also think that Alberto Mina would perform well. The thing with this matchup specifically is that there's nothing wild about Emeev's style. He's very efficient with what he wants to do. He knows exactly where he wants to take the fight, and he's super hard to defeat in those areas. And what I'm referring to is the clinch. So, if Osiris Maya is reffing this fight, I think there's going to be times when they break up the action a little bit quick. But it's not like Emeev is some slouch in the standing distance either. He's good everywhere the fight goes, and I think he's going to have a slight edge here over Mina. So I actually do think the minus 220 price here is warranted, and I'm going to go with the favorite, Ramazan Emeev, via unanimous decision. Now next up, in the middleweight division, we got Jack the Joker Hermansson. He's minus 155. The comeback on Thales Leites is plus 135. Now, Shaq, Jack is 0-2 in Brazil. Now he's trying to make the third time the charm, and luckily for him, he's not fighting an athletic specimen like Thiago Marreta Santos, like Cezar Mutanchi Ferreira. Now he's fighting an old man on his way out. You think third time's going to be the charm for the Joker here?
Yeah, man, it's a good fight, man. Jack definitely let a lot of people down his last fight in Brazil, and like you said, he is 0-2 in Brazil. But I think those guys that he fought are operating at a completely different frequency. Cezar Ferreira, I mean, he's won 4 out of his last five out of his last 6, something like that. Then we got Thiago Marreta Santos. I feel like that's just if you're not more athletic or as fast as Thiago Marreta Santos, he's gonna butcher you. You know what I'm saying? So I think Hermansson definitely has a path to victory. Thales is, I do think he's on his way out. I think Thales is super tough. Like we've been saying in the past, that Nova Nyao style for the men is dying out the game. We've been seeing it over and over again. And Thales, I think it's pretty clear. Once you stop his first takedown and you let him know that he's just not going to take you down, he tends to, mentally diminish. And I think it's a good matchup for that because I think Jack's got a serious cardio advantage. I think Thales is getting more unstable on his feet day by day. Just like that Christoph fight, the European, I feel like the European style movement will take Jack a long way in this fight. I think he's going to run circles around him. I think Thales is going to have a hard time finding him. I think early he's going to come with a big explosion. And when Thales gets tired, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's just a couple of big hooks, a takedown. If you stop that takedown, he might go for a sacrifice throw or a lateral drop and go to his back. And I think Jack will smash his face in once that happens. So I'm going to go with Jack. I think the third time is the charm. Like I said, I think Thales is getting up there in damage. I think the best fight was in Raw. The Musasi fight was a hellacious beating. The Christoph fight was a hellacious beating. The Brad Tavares fight was a hellacious beating. And he's not fighting Chris Mosey with no takedown defense. He's not fighting Sam Alvey who doesn't move. So I'm going to go with Jack Hermansson here.
Yeah, I agree. I think third time will be the charm here. A lot of people were mentioning how, Jack Jack was very honest in his interviews before the Marreta Santos fight that, he was questioning himself a bit. But look, I think if you're lined up on the docket to fight a guy like Thiago Santos, it's only natural that you're questioning yourself because for a fact Thiago is one of the biggest knockout artists in the UFC middleweight division. And if you're going to lose a fight to that guy, you're probably going to get knocked the fuck out. So, yeah, obviously he was a little bit worried going into that. But with Thales, the worst case scenario is you either get laid on or you get submitted. So I don't think that same fear level is going to be there for Jack Hermansson. I think he's going to be a little bit more comfortable in this fight. And now that he's been in Brazil twice, he knows what to expect. He's coming down here. I feel like it's almost to prove a point. I feel like he's the kind of guy that called Sean Shelby and was like, look, I want to right the wrong. I want to come back to Brazil, finally get that first win, and just prove to myself that I can do it. And look, Thales Leites, he had an incredible career. I mean, I remember when he fought Anderson Silva at UFC 97 and was one of the only guys to make it the full 5-round distance with him. And we know there was some things going on in that fight. He was flopping to his back a lot. But hey, at the time, man, everyone was getting knocked out left and right by Anderson Silva, and Thales went the full 5-round distance. But since that point, he did lose that fight to Alessio Sakara. He got cut. He had to work his way back up. He came back into the UFC. This is all pre-Reebok. And let's start with the Mousasi fight. When you get your eye jabbed off to the point where meat is hanging off your face, it was really bad. But he's one of these guys like Josh Berkman where he's too tough for his own good. So he won't go down. He won't take a knee. He'll just take the ass whooping. He beat Chris Camozzi. If you haven't figured out how to beat Chris Camozzi yet, I don't know what to say. The fight with Jocko, I feel like that could be the blueprint for Jack Hermansson here in this spot, because we know Jack Hermansson has very similar footwork to a Krzysztof Jocko. Alvi, I mean, if you haven't figured out how to leg kick Alvi for 3 straight rounds, I mean, look, what's his name? Tom Watson exposed the blueprint on how to beat Sam Alvey in Sam Alvey's debut, so it was no secret there. And then with Tavares, I was talking to Eric Anders about this one. Eric was like, Tavares beat him with one hand only. He literally only beat him with his left hand. He beat the shit out of him with one hand only. Now, I feel like with all weapons, Jack can have a serious performance here. He's not going up against a guy that's much more superior in terms of athleticism like Ferreira or Santos. Now he's fighting an old guy on his way out. I feel like he can take advantage. Just got to be careful of a few things. If you're on top of Thales Leites, don't get triangle choked. You know what I'm saying? Don't get swept. Don't get taken down. And as long as he avoids all that, I think he's going to put a beating on Leites, either a 30-27, 30-26, maybe a late TKO. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got Warlley Alves. He's minus 240. The comeback on Sultan Aliev is plus 200. Now, man, Warlley Alves, I think a lot of people forget the kid's only 27 years old. Now, I might question that, Shaq. I think he's more like 32 years old. I mean, the dude went bald before he was 22. But look, man, Warlley Alves is a guy that has wins over Colby Covington, wins over Nordine Taleb, wins over Alan Juban. And, he paid his dues. He took his L's like a man. Now he's taking on Sultan Aliev, the master of Sambo. So who you got in this one?
Yeah, I think this is a good case of Russian. I feel like the line should be a little wider, to be honest. I think Sultan Aliev, I feel like if his name was Mike Jones, Warlley Alves would be minus 600 or something. You know what I'm saying? I just think this whole Russian thing, I feel like Sultan Aliev is on the bottom spectrum, on the bottom of the spectrum when it comes to the Russian fighters. You know what I'm saying? I would compare him more to, Gusan Umalatov more than I would compare him to, Islam or a Khabib or, I don't even think he's an Omar. You know what I'm saying? I think he's a stalker. I think he's a situational wrestler. I think his chin is definitely in question. A lot of people think that Kenny Robertson KO was a fluke. I'll tell you right now, it wasn't a fluke at all, because Kenny was operating at a faster pace than he was. And, I think he's got some good situational wrestling. I think he's good at looking at the clock with a minute left and getting a takedown. But when you're fighting Bojan Veličević, who, once again, isn't with the company anymore and who can't stuff a takedown and save his life, of course, I expect him to pull those out. And other than that, I think Warlley Alves, definitely has a bad reputation as a quitter. But I don't think he's a quitter at all. I think he's more of like a young Serginho. I just feel like maybe he has problems pacing himself. As him and Serginho, they both like to come out hard the first round, but that third round, they're both huffing and puffing for air. So I think it's more of a pacing problem. I actually do think he's tough, because if he wasn't tough, Barberena and Juban would have knocked him out in that third round. So I think Warlley Alves is going to get the job done here. I'm going to say first round KO, first or second round KO. I think it's going to be flash style. I think Ramazan's going to come out. I think early Warlley is going to absolutely butcher him. The only question is, I think the first round, if he does survive, I think the first round will be 10-8. The only thing is, if Warlley is completely gassed in that second and third round, I'm not going to act like Sultan can't take him down. But the thing is, Warlley's got good takedown of him. So I'm going to go with Warlley by KO. I think Sultan's on the bottom on the Russian poll. Like I said, I think if his name was, Randy, this would be minus 500 Warlley. So I'm going to go with Warlley.
Yeah, I mean, those are some good points. Sultan Aliev definitely is on the bottom end of the pool for the Russians. It's just like you said, man, because his name is Sultan Aliev, that's why the line's a little bit closer. That's why people are scared to bet on Warlley Alves here because, I mean, look, man, these Russians are winners. And he's from Dagestan. He hangs out with the crew. He does the whole bit. He's a badass, man. Sultan Aliev is a true badass, and he's paid his dues as well. Now, I want to talk about Sultan Aliev's chin because I do think it's an issue. He did get knocked out by Roberson, but, outside of the UFC, he's doing these Sambo competitions, and they let him do it while he has his UFC career going on because, as you know, in Sambo, they're wearing headgear. Dude, he got knocked out cold with headgear on in 2016 after the Kenny Robertson fight. So, the Kenny Robertson fight wasn't a fluke at all. I'll just say that right now. And he beat Bojan Velichkovic, and literally every single person that's been inside the UFC's octagon with Bojan Velichkovic has taken him down. And I mean everyone, including Alessio Di Chirico, just to refresh your memory. So, I don't really put much stock into taking down a guy like Bojan. We know Bojan has probably the worst fight IQ in recent memory. There's a reason he got cut from the UFC. There's a reason it didn't pan out. You know what I'm saying? And with Warlley, I think people have always criticized his cardio, but when you're going in there with guys that push a pace like Barberena, when you're going in there with guys that push a pace like Usman, guys that throw 4 strikes per minute, and you're this explosive young guy, chances are you're going to gas out. But with Sultan Aliev, he throws 1.3 strikes per minute, and, he basically doesn't throw at all. He waits for, 1 minute left to get that takedown, and Warlley's got very good takedown defense. It's very underrated. He's a very athletic guy. I think that's the reason why he does tend to gas from time to time is because, when you're that kind of an athlete, it kind of reminds me of Yoel in a way, man. I mean, when you're throwing those big, explosive moves, you got to take time to recharge those batteries. And I feel like in his last fight against the Polish kid, Salim Tuari, I feel like he proved that, look, I can go out there and win a decision, and win the first and third round and show that I can go out here, get this 30-27, get this 29-28, and not leave any sketchy moments in that third and final round like he has in the past, because the Juban fight was a little bit questionable in that third round. But, man, Warlley went out there. He won the first round against Barberena. He won the first round against Usman. As we know, those guys came back and won the fights, but those guys represent a completely different style than Sultan Aliev. Those guys are, they're aggressive, high pace pushers.
Barberena's a workman. And Kamaru's a top 6-7 guy.
Yeah, and Aliev's always coming off a 2-year layoff. Look, I'm not going to sit here and act like Aliev isn't strong in the tie-ups because he is. He's got a very nice double underhook, and he's got good takedowns. I just feel like Warlley's going to be able to either stuff that swim for those underhooks or get back up to his feet. And then on the feet, I feel like there's a frequency difference. I feel like he's going to hit him with a big counter right, put him out cold. And it might be one of those knockouts where Aliev goes out stiff for a second, and then he wakes up immediately, and he's like, oh, are you fucking serious? It got stopped. I think it's going to be one of those knockouts, so I am going to go with Warlley Alves here. Inside the distance, I think he gets it done. Now, next up, one of the best fights on the card. We got Elizeu Zaleski Dos Santos. He's minus 135. The comeback on Sean Strickland is plus 115. Now, man, Sean Strickland, he's what we like to refer to as a winner. He's 19-2 overall, but he is traveling to Brazil here, and we know he has the tendency to fight close. Fighting close in Brazil doesn't always go well. With all that said, my man, you leaning with Strickland or with Capoeira Zaleski?
Man, this is an underrated fight, man. I feel like this is one of the more closely matched fights because, like you said, a lot of people don't sleep on my boy Sean Strickland because I think he's got one of the top, 2 or 3, 4 jab games in the business, man. His jab is absolute money. Like, he's one of those guys that will, break your nose with his jab, you know what I'm saying? Just go back and watch that Tom Reese fight. I thought that was an incredible performance. But, as you guys know, we've been high on Zaleski for a while on the show. I mean, Zaleski's been a money train for best fight pick. So this is a completely different fight. Zaleski has been getting in these wars. And I don't think Strickland's looking for a war. Strickland's looking to, parry that right hand and pop him with a jab. So it's going to be an interesting fight. I do think there's a path to victory for Strickland if he because Zaleski's weakness is his wrestling, of course. He has been taken down against Nakamura, against Omari, against Dalby. His takedown defense is getting better, but, he can definitely be tied up. The thing is, like you mentioned before, the fights in Brazil and with Strickland's style, when you watch Strickland fight, if you bet on Strickland, you're always asking more out of him, you know what I'm saying? But, for the most part, he does just enough. When Strickland moves back, he does scare me with his chin up in the air. So, I do definitely, I think if he makes a mistake with the type of heat that Elizeu throws, Elizeu tries to knock heads off, Elizeu is what we like to call the master of war. It's a very tough fight. I've been going back and forth on this one. It's a very tough fight. But I am going to go with Elizeu just because the Brazil factor here. I think when Elizeu does put pressure on him and get Strickland to back up and put his chin in the air, I think the crowd is going to make a lot of noise. And when Strickland gets in there, he eats a lot of shots. Granted, when he fights Court McGee, who's, is he still in the company?
He's an old man.
You know what I'm saying? He's an old man. I expect him to be more effective in this fight. I do think the calf kick for Elizeu could play a weapon here as well. Strickland likes to put a lot of weight on that front leg, but I've been seeing some videos of Strickland. He's looking like he's in the best shape in his life. So this is a definition of a pass fight for me because I see routes to victory for both guys. And I wouldn't sleep on Sean Strickland. The guy's 19-2, so the guy wins a lot of fights, but I'm going to go with Elizeu here just with that Brazil factor, and I think he's going to land the more harder shots throughout the 3 rounds, the shots that make the crowd go ooh and ah, and I think he might actually get a knockdown here or there.
I feel like Sean Strickland's move to King's MMA was one of the best decisions he ever made for his career. So for those that don't know, he's at King's MMA now. He's sparring with guys like Kelvin Gastelum, guys like Werdum. He's getting it in. Beneil Dariush. So I feel like that was a great move for him because Sean Strickland has always had a reputation of being one of those guys that goes super hard in the gym. And, Alves and Dan Hendo, they kind of had to put him under wraps. They had to be like, dude, chill out. People didn't want to spar with Sean Strickland anymore. And we know the culture over there at King's MMA. Those guys try to kill each other every single day. So I feel like that's the perfect fit for a guy like Sean Strickland. With Elizeu Zaleski, look, after his fight with Max Griffin, even after his fight with Lyman Good, we were saying stuff like, as a fan, how can you not love him? But with that style that he brings to the table, he's always getting into these wars. I was saying stuff like, man, he needs to take at least a year off. And now he's coming back in there against a guy like Sean Strickland. And it's funny because Sean Strickland has this reputation of being a guy with low output, but he actually throws over 4 strikes per minute. So he actually has a bit more of output than people give him credit for. Like you mentioned, the 19-2 winning record. You can't just go in there and deny a record like that because not many people can put up those kind of numbers in pro MMA. I mean, we're talking about guys like Jimmy Rivera. We're talking about guys like James Vick. We're talking about guys like Cody Stamann. Sean Strickland, you can absolutely, he might not be ranked where those guys are ranked, but as far as a resume, when you're 19-2 in pro MMA, I tip my cap to a record like that. And I think he's a smart guy. I think he's well-rounded everywhere too. He's got 81% takedown defense. He also has a pretty decent offensive takedown game as well. The fight with Usman, I feel like he kind of accepted the fact that he was going to get his ass whooped early after he ate a few of those shots. And let's just put it this way. A lot of people would have taken a much more severe ass whooping in that spot than he did. He knew how to run away and minimize the damage, but he also knew that there was no coming back in that fight. This is a completely different matchup because I feel like Zaleski is a lot slower than Strickland. I feel like he's going to have to eat a lot of jabs to close that distance. But one thing we like about Zaleski is when it's time to turn up, Zaleski turns up, and he knows how to turn it into a serious war. So that's what I'm kind of curious about. Is he going to be able to get past that jab of Strickland and start landing some big winging hooks and potentially get Strickland out of there or add up those points on the scorecards? It's hard for me to see. If this was in Vegas, this would be like my top underdog play. But since it is in Brazil, you got to be super hesitant, man, because we know how those we know if my boy Osiris Myers in there, what's about to happen. But all that being said, I'm still
just put it this way: Camila Albuquerque and Osiris has Zaleski in their DraftKings team.
Exactly. So, look, all that being said, I think Sean will make it obvious enough to where he can get that 29-28. On 2 cards, potentially a 30-27. That's going to be quite a feat to do in Brazil. But I do think that Sean Strickland will edge this one out. Worst case scenario, it being a split decision. So I'm going to go with the underdog Strickland here. But, being in Brazil, you got to be super careful. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got Davi Ramos. She's minus 150, and the comeback on Sergeant Nick Hein is plus 130. Now, I know y'all recall when we cashed that max bet on Davi Ramos against Chris Gritzmacher, then we turned around and won an underdog play on Gritzmacher against Joe Lozon. But now Davi Ramos has a different matchup. Now he's taking on a guy in Nick Hein who, let's just say, Nick Hein wins a lot of fights, Shaq.
Yeah, Nick Hein's no slouch. I mean, his only loss is to James Vick, and I mean, he floored Vick twice in that first round. So Nick Hein's not fucking slouch at all. Davi Ramos, initially, I had a 7-unit bet on Davi Ramos to beat Gritzmacher at minus 180. By the way, that line did close at like minus 4 or something. That's what you get with best fight picks. But he did definitely have some moments of where he was pulling guard 2 minutes into that fight. But now looking back at it, we know the type of fighter that Gritzmacher is, and we know the type of pace that Gritzmacher puts on. Like, Gritzmacher puts on a pace that, like, Gritzmacher's a cardio freak. Like, he looks like a fat slob, but like, his cardio is so on point. Like, he doesn't get tired at all, and he's got a chin made of like, I don't know. We explained this on UFC 223. Just don't sleep on my boy Gritzmacher moving forward. But I think Davi, he swings so heavy that if he doesn't crush guys, that he tends to slow down. And you know what happens when the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt power puncher gasses out, man. You know what happens after that? They tend to flop to their backs, and that's just what the Brazilian weasel tactics are. I mean, it's just facts. So Nick Hein, the thing with Nick Hein is, although he does win a lot of fights, he's been cutting off through these layoffs after layoff after layoff. And his last fight against what's the guy that's in jail? That beat Leo Kuntz. Yeah, Tai-Hyun Bang. Tai-Hyun Bang, I mean, there were some moments where Nick Hein was wobbling this one specific way I don't like. And when I say that one specific way, I'm talking about the freeze-up way. I like to call it the Luke Rockhold, the Gray Maynard, You start seeing signs early that the KO loss is coming, you know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, the KO loss is right around the corner for Nick Hein. He's wobbling this one specific way I don't like. I do think he is the better overall fighter. If Davi does slow down, Nick Hein's got that judo to get on top and smash him. But I got a feeling that Davi Ramos will crush him in the first round. I think Davi's one of the hardest hitters at 155. I think they don't call him the Tasmanian Devil for no reason, you know what I'm saying? I don't even have to say jiu-jitsu credentials. He submitted Gilbert Burns in a jiu-jitsu match before. Multiple-time world champion. I just think this is finally the time where Nick Hein's going to get caught. I think Davi's going to have that energy from the crowd. I think Hein's probably going to try to jab, and Davi's going to counter with a big left hook, right hook, and fight's going to be over, and he might sub him or just KO.
Yeah, I feel you on that 100%. Nick Hein, very underrated guy, 90% takedown defense, has that judo base, but is mostly known for picking guys apart, standing and winning these decisions. So, look, early on in this fight, Nick Hein, he's got to be super careful, because if there's one thing we know about Davi Ramos is that he comes out there and he throws some serious bombs. And, I mean, this is a guy that fought at welterweight against Sergino. He's 5'6", Shaq. And he went out there, they say he's 5'8". Between you and me, he's 5'5", you know what I'm saying? But he went out there, he was throwing some heavy bombs against Sergino in that first round. And I'm not convinced that my boy Sergeant Hein can eat those shots, because he has been freezing up. You saw that fight against Bong.
Even the fight with Yasuki Kasuya back in the day, man. I mean, there was a couple. I had a bet on Hein, so I remember it. I mean, he was scaring me in that fight for a little bit.
It was getting ugly, but you got to respect the guy that's 5-1, 6-1 in the UFC. He's definitely a winner, and that you got to respect that for sure. But that being said, I do think Davi has what it takes to come out here and be the first guy in UFC history to put Nick Hein away. It's just, look, if you don't put him away in that first round and you start pulling guard, you start flopping, you start doing all these things like you did against Gritzmacher, Nick Hein is the guy that knows how to grind out that second and third round, not get caught with the submission late, and go on to win that 29-28 decision. So I do see it being that knockout, I agree with you on this spot. But if he doesn't get it, it will get sketchy, and Nick Hein can win the decision. So, you know.
And like we mentioned before, Chris Gritzmacher has that ability to drain his opponent's cardio. So, I mean, all of Gritzmacher's opponents are gas. So.
And I'm looking forward to the potential matchup between Chris Gritzmacher and Jim Miller. I heard that might be in the works. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm looking forward. But look, as far as this is concerned, I do think Davi has what it takes to come out here and stop Nick Hein early. But like we said, you gas out, and Nick Hein will take over. So you got to get it done early. Now, next up in the heavyweight division, we got Junior Albini. He's minus 160. The comeback on Alexei Olenek is plus 140. Now, you know Alexei Olenek is the man. 80% of his wins are via submission. And when I say 80% of his wins, you got to understand that the guy, how many wins does my boy Alexei Olenek have?
Is it in the 40s or the 50s?
I'll tell you right now how many wins my boy Alexei has. My boy Alexei has 52 wins in his career. 42 of those 52 wins are via submission. Fight hits the mat one time, and it could be a mounted Ezekiel choke, if you know what I mean, Shaq.
For sure, man. It's a great fight, you know. To see Junior Albini make that debut against Tim Johnson and absolutely smoke him. Everyone thought he was going to be the top heavyweight prospect, and then he pulled that look at Arlovsky job on the Perez card, which a lot of people lost a lot of money on that. But I truly believe that if Junior Albini shows up like how he did with Tim Johnson, that he will knock Alexei out in the first round. I think Alexei's getting up there in age. You know how we say heavyweights have 9 lives? I think Alexei might have lost that 9th against Curtis Blades. I mean, he straight up quit in that fight, if we're going to be honest here. But we know the type of pressure that my boy Curtis Blades brings. I do think if Junior Albini can keep this on the outside, use his movement, set him up with the point fighting shots, and then land a big shot, I think he will floor Alexei in the first round. And I think it was the case. He said Andrei Arlovsky was his idol, man. He said Arlovsky was his idol growing up. Junior Albini's a young kid. I'm going to excuse it. I think he's going to show up for this one in Brazil, and I think he's going to knock Alexei out in the first round.
You know, Albini actually ain't that bad, man. I went back and watched that Arlovsky fight a couple times, and, it was a little bit of looking up to the guy, but there was also a speed difference. Arlovsky was the faster guy in there. But my boy Junior Albini does have some slick techniques in there, man, and he is... You're not going to just go out there and knock out a guy like Junior Albini. You got to know how to strike to fight a guy like that. He does come from the Astra fight team. Guys like Darren Till. Guys like Gleko Franca. So he's not training with slouches at all in the practice room. With Alexei, look, Alexei gets on top of you one time, and you know what I'm saying? He might schoolyard headlock you like he did at Crow Cop and Anthony Hamilton. He might Ezekiel choke you like he did to that jobber Victor Pesta. He might retire you like he did to Travis Brown. So Alexei is one of those guys. You don't count him out. I remember when he knocked out Jared Rochal, and at the time it's like...
Yeah, I bet on him in that fight at like plus 335, I think.
He's the kind of guy, you give him a couple bonuses for that, because you remember how Jared Rochal was stinking up the UFC heavyweight division at that time, and my boy Alexei just goes out there and sleeps him, so...
Yeah, I'm sure Dana gave him an extra 20, 30K under the table for taking care of Rochal.
Yeah, he was like, thank you very much. Didn't they cut my boy Rochal off a 1 loss?
Bro, that's what happens like Chris Wade, you know what I'm saying? When you're a lay and pray guy, you got to get the fuck out of here.
It's so funny because you got these people standing up for Chris Wade. It's like, Chris, yes, you're 5-2 in the UFC, but you're the most boring fucking fighter on the roster, bro. Come on now.
I mean, besides that flying head kick on Rustam, I mean, he's a lane breaker.
Yeah, but let's talk that flying head kick. When you flying head kick command, then 2 seconds later you're on your back. That's all I gotta say, Shaq. So look.
Yeah, but, he was fighting a Russian.
I wish him luck in the $1 million tournament, Shaq.
You mean the $10,000 tournament?
You mean the tournament that's never gonna actually happen? Yes, that one. So look, Junior Albini's got some good technique standing, man. I mean, he's got the art of 8 limbs down. He's a good Muay Thai fighter. I think when you hear about his story, when you hear about how much that 50K bonus meant to him. He was going through a lot of things in his life. That was the first time he'd ever had any kind of money. I can understand you come out your next fight not looking the same, but now that he had both of those scenarios behind him, he knows what it's like to get in the winner's circle. He knows what it's like to take that first L against your idol. Now I feel like he's poised to come back and potentially put Alexei out early in this fight. I'm questioning how much Alexei has left in the tank, but as we know, Alexei gets on top one time, it could be over. I don't think he will get on top that one time. I think Junior is going to land something clean, so I do have Junior in the first or second round. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got Karl Roberson. He's minus 125. The comeback on Cezar Mutanchi Ferreira is plus 105. Now, there was a point where people were fading Mutanchi against guys like Oluwole Bangbose. They thought that you touch him one time and he's going to go out cold. Now, it seems like he had some kind of back surgery or, something happened and he hasn't been knocked out cold in about 3 years. He's learned how to work around his chin. He's learned how to, pull an over-him. But that being said, man, if there's one thing that never recovers, it is the chin. And Karl Roberson could be, a legit striker here. It's just about, we haven't seen him in there with anyone legit yet, so we got to see for ourselves. But this fight is going to let us know exactly where Karl Roberson is. Win or lose, we're going to find out exactly where he stands. So now my question is he going to come out here and prove that he's legit, or is he about to get derailed?
Man, this is one of the fights I'm looking forward to the most, man, because there's a lot of people backing Karl Roberson here. And, I understand why. I mean, he elbow KO'd Ryan Spann in the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series. And he knocked out or he submitted Darren Stewart. But Dan, what's Darren Stewart's UFC record?
0-4.
0-4, and you know what I'm saying? Now, my whole thing with this fight is, okay, yeah, Cezar, he's won like 4 of his last 5. I thought he arguably beat Elias as well. The thing is, even in those wins, there's still moments where Cezar is getting wobbled. He even got dropped by Elias. He got dropped by Ben Bose. He got dropped by Nate Marquardt. He got dropped by who else did he fight again? The Hermansson fight he didn't get dropped, but Hermansson's more of the point fighting style. But there's still moments in each of these fights where his chin's getting tested and he's getting wobbled. And I feel like a younger, fresher guy with a killer instinct, would probably get him out of there. But a lot of people don't know is, like, to say that Roberson's going to be able to, hang with Cezar on the ground, I mean, that's just a complete guess in my opinion. Of course you can back him as a prospect, you can back him this and that, but there's no facts to base that he can hang with Cezar on the ground in any situation at all. You've seen 2 fights against a bum and Darren Stewart who gets finished by everyone pretty much, and some guy that's not even in the UFC. So he's got 5 or 6 fights. Now you can hear things and just take the leap and assume that he is this guy that everyone thinks he is, which I mean he might be, but there's literally no fact. If you think Cezar Ferreira is just a normal black belt, you got another thing coming. Cezar ain't just no normal black belt. He's a 3rd-degree black belt. A lot of people forget that. There's a difference between a black belt and a 3rd-degree black belt. So to say that he's going to hang with him on the mat and be fine is completely a guess in my opinion. But like I said, there's still moments where Cezar is squaring up against the fence and he's getting called a punch and he's wobbling. And, granted, when he's fighting old-ass Nate Marquardt, he'll probably get away with it. When he's fighting, Pillow Fist Elias, he'll probably get away with it. And when he's fighting, point fighting Hermansson, he'll get away with it. But I think Roberson, this whole glory striker thing, let's calm down a bit here because, I mean, Ryan Foster's was a glory fighter.
Chris Camozzi's a glory fighter.
Justin Baseman was a glory fighter. So I mean, let's calm down on this whole. He's a glory striker. He lost both those fights in glory. Just put it this way: if Mitch Clark wanted to be a glory fighter, he could. I mean, this whole glory striker thing is.
If Elias wanted to be a glory striker, he could too.
If Elias Fedora wanted to go sign up for a glory fight, he could. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man.
So this whole glory striker thing is kind of ludicrous in my opinion. But I do actually think Roberson is going to get this one. I do think he does have the power, but to put the confidence in it like that with no facts about what's going to happen on the mat, I mean, like I said, Cezar ain't no fucking black belt. He's a third-degree black belt. You know who else is a third-degree black belt? Guys like Davi, Ramos, guys like Carlos Ferreira that tie people's arms up behind their back. I mean, you see what Cezar's capable of with that choke against Machida, against Hermansson. I mean, he's a third-degree black belt. So if this fight hit the mat, I would be holding my breath if I was on Roberson's side. But I do think at some point, if he can, avoid that, he does train with Ricardo Almeida. He does train with good ground fighters like Corey Anderson. So we're going to see. But I'm going to go with Roberson by KO.
Yeah, look, it's a tough one to call because there's a lot of guesses here. We've never seen Roberson against a guy at this level, but what we have seen from Roberson, hey, he's handled those jobbers exactly how you're supposed to. So when you get a fight like this, that's literally a coin flip. It's a guess because we're guessing, is Roberson on this level or not? Because oftentimes the vet does come out there and hand that young up-and-coming guy their first ever defeat. We all know that first L is always around the corner. But another thing we know about my picking style is I do like to go with the young up-and-coming guys over the vets, and I'm going to do that here as well. I'm going to go with Roberson. I think he becomes the first man to find the chin of Cezar Mutanchi since 2015. Now, whether that comes to fruition or not remains to be seen, but I will be picking Roberson as well. Next up in the Legends division, the middleweight division, we got Lyoto Machida. He's minus 275. The comeback on Vitor Belfort is plus 235. Now, Shaq, these two trained together in the good old days, so who you got in this matchup?
Yeah, it's an interesting fight, man. They're both what I like to refer to as grandpas, They both look like they they kind of look like heavyweights too these days, man. They both got 9 lines as well. Man, it's a tough fight. I think the line's a complete joke, firstly. I mean, just because Lyoto beat Eric Anders was fighting Brendan Allen like a year ago. I mean, he simply wasn't ready. It was a huge step up in competition from going from Markus Perez to Lyoto. And, Lyoto showed me that, he might be able to still beat a couple guys, but it's very few, you know what I'm saying? These are the type of fights that, you could possibly win. If they put him in there with, a more experienced under guy, he'll get knocked stiff. Vitor, same thing, Put him there with any young guys, he's going to get knocked stiff. I actually like Vitor's performance against Nate Marquardt. I was under the impression that Nate got robbed, but there was no robbery at all in that fight. Vitor, he fought smart, he protected his chin. And I like Lyoto in a few rounds, man. He was slipping and ripping. I thought Anders had a bad game plan standing out in space with him. But this is the definition of a pass fight. If you were going to take any side, it has to be Vitor's. There's no way I'm going to, bet on Lyoto like that because I feel like it could be a thing of who gets their chin touched first. We know power is the last thing to go. I'm going to go with Vitor for the upset just because he's the underdog, man, and I think the line's a joke, so I'm going to go with Vitor.
Lyoto and Vitor trained together in the good old days. There was a lot of magma in that room, I hear. And I also heard that Lyoto got the better of those practices. But as you know, Shaq, it's not always the best guy in the practice room that wins the fight. And I got to know it from the fans. Who had a better career? Was it Lyoto, a one-time UFC light heavyweight champion with 1 title defense, wins over Randy Couture, Rashad Evans, Dan Henderson, Shogun, Musasi, Tito Ortiz, among others? Or was it Vitor Belfort, who also captured the light heavyweight championship, and we know it was very controversial? But hey, even if it's a cut, if it's a DQ, it doesn't matter. He still wore gold, and he's got wins over Bisping, Luke Rockhold, Dan Hendo, Vanderlei Silva, Anthony Rumble Johnson. So for all the fans that have to battle, let us know who had the better career between Lyoto and Vitor, because both have unbelievable resumes. But as far as this matchup is concerned, I also thought that it should have been lined a little bit closer. I do think that the value here is with Vitor at plus 235. But that being said, man, I don't know if you watched the stare downs today. My boy Vitor showing up in a bathrobe and flip-flops and his emotional support dog. Now, granted, he does have a German Shepherd. I got a soft spot for those kind of dogs, so I will give him some leeway for that. But, bro, why are you wearing a fucking bathrobe to the media stare downs? My boy Lyoto had a look in his eye like he was ready to like he knew something about the old days of practicing with Vitor in that room, and he used to get the better of him. It looked like he knew something. So I'm actually going to go with Lyoto here, but from a betting perspective, it is dog or pass. Well, Shaq, you wanna let him know what time of the year it is, man?
It's Max Best season times 2, man. It's time to join the ride as Best Fight Picks takes over Rio de Janeiro this weekend. We got 2 max bets on the card. Gonna get the job done. And, I mean, whether you're a small bettor or a big bettor, you're all welcome. I mean, Dan, we've been getting clients that, they have never put in bets in their entire lives before, man. And now we're telling them the exact amounts to put on each fight, and we're basically doing the entire consulting for them, man. And when we say Max Bet season, especially Max Bet season times 2, it's time to stop hesitating and get this money. So, I mean, let us showcase our talents for UFC 224. And then, matter of fact, I'll run a promotion right here, right now. For anyone that buys that one event VIP package, if you don't win this weekend, you get the next 2 events free. That's UFC Chile and UFC Liverpool. So sounds like a good deal to me. If you like making money, if you like being on the right side, if you want to know the opportunistic moments to go big on certain spots like what we're doing for UFC 224, then it's time to hop on board right now. Send us an email at bestfightpicks@gmail.com. And if you haven't sent us that email yet, shame on you.
It's funny, Shaq brings up some of our newer clients that have never placed a bet in their lives. We're helping them do the whole process together. But then we also got the whales with huge bankrolls. We're telling them what to do as well. And Shaq, I've noticed some of these guys' records are as fake as Mackenzie Dern's accent. When you look at my record, you see hard work. When you look at my record, you see dedication. When you look at my record, you see a long-term winner. And this month is consensus max bet season. I say consensus because you know what the numbers say when Dan and Shaq have a consensus max bet. It's undefeated, so this weekend, 2 max bets on the line. It's a winner. Hit us up, bestfightpicks.com, and let's get these wins. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got John Hands of Stone Lineker. He's minus 255. The comeback on Brian Boom Kelleher is plus 215. Now, I know we got a soft spot for my boy Brian Kelleher coming through on that dog money against Hen the Baron. But now he's taking on John Lineker in Brazil. It's a completely different matchup. Who you got?
Yeah, early I was kind of feeling Kelleher here. Because I think Kelleher, he mentioned that TJ Dillashaw laid out the blueprint to beat Renan Barão, and he also said TJ Dillashaw laid out the blueprint to beat John Lineker. So he thinks he's going to duplicate what TJ's doing these 2 fights. And it's going to be interesting. I definitely see some advantages for Kelleher. One thing I'll say right here, right now, Kelleher ain't scared of John Lineker like the rest of John Lineker's opponents. We know Rob Font was quaking in his boots the second he saw Lineker. He had his back against the fence the entire time. He flopped to his back multiple times. And then Marlon Vera can't box, and, he's a tough guy, but, he just wasn't ready. He's got a pulling the trigger issue, you know what I'm saying? So, and which 2 things that Kelleher definitely does not have. Now, Marlon Vera beat Kelleher, not like it matters, because, what's Lineker going to do? Sub him? Lineker's got a sub on his record. But
against my boy Cisco Rivera.
Yeah, exactly. Who hasn't subbed him, So this is going to be a good fight, man. I definitely see a lot of Lineker max bets, and, I definitely think John's the better fighter here. But what about John's wrestling, man? I've always said top 5 guys shouldn't be getting taken down that easy. You know what I'm saying? And the TJ fight, people think it was like this masterclass performance. I thought it was kind of basic, to be honest. He switched stance a couple of times, but the takedowns were coming too easy. I do understand John got his jaw broken, but I haven't seen pictures of my boy John Lineker this week, and I'm gonna go ahead and say he's definitely got a new doctor, or the fight's in Brazil. I would be very careful with the Kelleher plays, even though I don't really see too many. I do think John is filled with some Brazilian acai, if you know what I'm talking about. So I don't think Kelleher's scared. I think he's gonna get right in there. It's gonna be a good fight, man. If you can take him down, it really wouldn't surprise me, man, because I think Kelleher is really good. I think he's a top 15 fighter. I think, I was under the impression that Renan Barão was completely done, but Renan Barão actually looked pretty good in that fight, man. I thought Hennen was actually looking decent. I think Hennen could have beat a lot of guys that night, actually. So I'm going to go with Lineker, but it is a dog or pass situation for me.
Brian Kelleher is a dog. He's a junkyard dog. He's the kind of guy that is not afraid of anyone. He'll fight anyone, anytime, any place. And also, most of his losses are via submission. He's never been stopped via strikes before. So that would be a first if John Lineker went out there and stopped him via TKO. But that being said, Kelleher's never fought a guy that cracks as hard as John Lineker. And you see the looks on these guys' faces when they get hit by him. It's like they've never been hit by anything like that before in their lives. I mean, he made my boy Robbie Font pull guard. You know what I'm saying? And you don't just make a guy like Robbie Font pull guard. So John Lineker hits like a truck. And the thing with Kelleher, though, is, I've spoken to Jimmy Rivera at length about this many times, and he said the way to beat Lineker is to take this guy down. So I'm curious if, Brian Kelleher is coming out here, wants to prove that he's man enough, that he's got the balls to stand toe-to-toe with Lineker, or if he's going to come out here smart, learn the lessons from the times that people have defeated Lineker, and come out here and use a takedown-heavy attack because, he is the bigger guy in there. But all that being said, I see Lineker landing the harder shots over a 3-round duration, and I see that winning him a decision. So I'm going to go with Lineker via decision. I see it being a very intriguing and entertaining battle, but ultimately I do think Hands of Stone will get his arm raised. So yeah, I'm going to go with John Lineker here. Now next up in the strawweight division, we got Mackenzie Fake Accent Dern. She's minus 250. The comeback on Amanda Bobby Cooper is plus 210. Now, a lot of people are convinced this is the spot to fade Mackenzie Dern. Now, Shaq, I'm not convinced, man. I'll tell you this. Amanda Bobby Cooper has been submitted 3 times. We know Mackenzie Dern has a serious jiu-jitsu background, but we also know Bobby Cooper can box a lot better than Mackenzie can at this time. What do you think is going to go down when these two throw down inside the UFC's octagon?
It was an intriguing fight. Mackenzie Dern opened minus 530, and then all the action came in on ABC. I just got to say, there's been one common thing when ABC fights the top prospects. When she fought Aspen Ladd, when they hit the mat, what happened? She got finished. When she fought Tatiana Suarez, when they hit the mat, what happened? When she fought Cynthia Calvillo, when they hit the mat, what happened? Her wins are over Angela Magana. I don't really have to explain that. And soccer mom Anna Almos, who is she even with the company anymore? So she did
since retired.
Jamie Moyle is what we like to refer to as a jobber. To back ABC like this is pretty intriguing, man, because I think when we say good boxing, when I say good boxing, I think of a Cody Stamann, or if I wanted to say female level good boxing, like a Tisha Torres, or you know what I'm saying. I think ABC has more panic boxing. I think she just tries to. She moves and all, but I think it's more just panic boxing, kind of spam a lot of punches. I mean, when you're fighting Anna Amos, who, by the way, dropped her, and, Anna Amos, that's a soccer mom. This is a completely different thing. I actually think Mackenzie Dern has a lot of potential. I think, if she can make the weight, even if she doesn't make the weight, but if she, can stay healthy, I think she's got power moving down the line, bro. I think that you're going to see her drop a couple girls like how she already has in her past fights. I think she's got power. I think she's super hard to handle when she moves forward. Granted, it is sloppy, but these 115-pound chicks aren't really used to that. I mean, we already saw what happened when a big, overwhelming girl like Tatiana got on top of her. When, Aspen Ladd, a big girl, got on top of her. When they get in there, Mackenzie Dern's going to be north of 130 pounds, you know what I'm saying? And to be honest, I don't want to be shocked if Mackenzie missed weight. So I think it's going to be just a difference when they tie up. I think when they tie up, this fight's going to be, what happens when the times when ABC's hit the mat, when it hasn't been against Angela fucking Magana and and Anna Elmos, she's been dominated. So I think Mackenzie Dern's going to do the same. I actually think Mackenzie's going to land punches on the feet as well. I don't think it's this mismatch on the feet that people think it is. I think that forward aggression is going to spook ABC. I think she's super nervous. I think she's super tense. And I got Mackenzie Dern by finish.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand. I think that people are thinking the right things in terms of, you want to fade.
Yeah, I think it's the right idea, but wrong person. I think they're overestimating ABC. Just like this reminds me of O'Malley and Sukumtouch. All this action coming on this guy, but you guys are forgetting this guy. This guy really ain't shit.
Yeah, they're completely overvaluing Amanda Cooper. And look, I mean, I'm down to fade Mackenzie Dern when the time is right, but I really don't feel like the time is right here against this chick who's been submitted a million times. Her only wins are against Magana and Elmos. Like, come on. I mean, what do you think would happen if Dern went in there with Magana and Elmos? So, and I know that Mackenzie Dern's striking is ugly, but, one thing that we talked about with that Priscilla Cachoeira girl, and yeah, she fought Valentina, but initially she was supposed to fight someone else, is that these girls aren't used to chicks with knockout power. And my girl Mackenzie, even though it's ugly, she hits pretty hard for a girl. I'll say that right now. But obviously what she's known for is her jiu-jitsu. So for Bobby Cooper to win this fight, Bobby has to keep it standing for 3 straight rounds and pick apart Mackenzie Dern and hope to somehow get a stoppage, which I just don't see happening. I think that, look, obviously 90% of fights hit the mat, 100% of fights start standing, so it will start standing. Bobby will hopefully, for her sake, be able to get off on some punches, but at some point, man, this fight will hit the mat, and when it does, it'll be over shortly after. We mentioned with that Yoder fight that it was interesting because Yoder does what Mackenzie does, just Mackenzie does it a little bit better. Yoder's known for, they call her the spider monkey, right? She's known for pulling guard and doing all these things on the mat. Bobby Cooper's the complete opposite. Bobby Cooper, she's allergic to that mat. You know what I'm saying? You get her on the mat and don't be surprised when she's tapping 2 seconds later. So I do see it being some kind of choke here. So I'm going to go with Mackenzie Dern. Look, she's minus 250. Now she opened minus 530. So it's honestly a little bit of value on the favorite here. It's just, how can you trust her when, she's so green and inexperienced. This is a big pressure moment to fight in Brazil.
I mean,
the fake accent, all that. But I do have Mackenzie Dern.
True, but the thing is, I mean, what's ABC's record? I think she just got over 500 the other day. She's like, what, 4-3?
In the UFC, she's like 2-3.
And Mackenzie Dern's, what's her record, like 5-0, 6-0?
Yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of pro experience, it's really not that much far off.
Actually, Bobby's 2-2 because the Aspen Ladd fight was in Invicta. But bottom line, we know the deal. She's been having submission issues since before her UFC career.
Exactly. And, Aspen Ladd is a big girl, but trust me, when Mackenzie gets in there, she's going to be a big girl too.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, speaking of a size discrepancy, middleweight division, co-main event of the evening, we got Ronaldo Jacare Souza. He's minus 150. The comeback on Kelvin Gastelum is plus 130. Now, look, man, normally I like Kelvin Gastelum in these underdog spots. I mean, people that have been listening to Half the Battle know that I was on him against Tim Kennedy, that plus 160, against Ellenberger, even against Woodley. We lost that split. But bottom line, I've been a Kelvin backer at the window for a long time. But one thing I got to say, I've noticed a pattern. Every time he fights a larger man that can grapple, he tends to lose. And, I thought the Magny fight was kind of a fluke, but I feel like the Weidman fight solidified that, hey, that Magny fight wasn't a fluke at all. A bigger man that can, get on the inside, get those double underhooks and body Kelvin Gastelum, can go out there and win the fight. And we know if Jacare gets on top of you one time, that could be all she wrote. Now, I'm one of the select few that bet Robert Whittaker at plus 205 to defeat Jacare because I felt like Robert Whittaker, I always said he was going to be a future world champion. I thought he was the dark horse of that division. I thought that was a completely different matchup. And Jacare even took his back early. Robert was able to escape that. Now, what I want to know here, Shaq, is if Ronaldo Jacare gets a good position on Kelvin early, do you think Kelvin will be able to escape similar to how the champ Whittaker did? Or do you think it's going to, show some of these old holes that we've already seen in Kelvin's game against Weidman, against Magny, even against Woodley if this fight hits the mat one time?
Yeah, it's tough to say because, before Jacare fought Bronson, he was a guy that I've been thinking was, on his way out. And, it seems like he's kind of rejuvenated himself in Orlando down there with my boy Julian Williams. But, with him getting that knockout, I don't want him to think that he's a striker now, you know what I'm saying? Because before let's not forget about the Yoel Romero fight when he got dropped. I've been feeling like his chin's been diminishing for a long time, and we know that you stand on the outside with Kelvin, there's going to be a straight left right down the pipe. And, we saw what he did to Bisping. That was one of the nicer slip and rips you're going to see. But like you said, the Weidman fight, I mean, he got completely overwhelmed. The second lineman got on his legs. But, I will say Chris Weidman probably has the best single leg in MMA. So, I mean, he did take Yoel Romero down with that single leg. So, it's tough to say, man. I think if Jacare stands with him at any type of distance, I think he's going to possibly get knocked out. But if he comes with the right approach, which he should, I mean, he's a smart fighter. He should be able to, overwhelm him and get him out of there on that mat. Because Kelvin's definitely a small 185. He is a little lazy, as my boy Kobe Covington referred to him, a fat midget. But
so he's still talking about going to 170. Can you believe that?
Yeah, like he needs to shut. Like, I mean, we bet on him in that Weidman fight. I mean, we knew we were going to lose that bet that first interview fight week. You know what I'm saying? Like when I watch tape on Kelvin, he shows me like these flashes of like brilliance at times, and then he just does something stupid, and it's just like, oh my god. But I'm gonna go with Kelvin in this one, man. I think he is gonna come ready early, and I think in that first round, I think if he can keep his distance, and I feel like Jacare is gonna probably telegraph a shot. I think early it'll get stuck, but if the longer the fight goes, I think it goes Jacare's way. And but I'm gonna go with Kelvin by first round knockout.
Interesting. Yeah, look, I've always been a Kelvin backer, especially at the betting window as an underdog, but I feel like I got to learn from mistakes. And one of the mistakes, like I've already alluded to, is when he fights a larger grappler, he tends to lose that fight. And I'm not talking about no Jake Ellenberger either, man. I'm talking about a guy like Magny. I'm talking about a guy like Weidman. It's been exposed twice. And with Jacare, the fight hits the mat one time and it could be over. So look, I hate to be the guy that says, oh, if it stays standing, Kelvin's going to knock him out. If it hits the mat, Jacare is going to submit him. Because, look, Jacare can stand, too. Jacare just knocked out Derek Brunson at the same time. I feel like Kelvin would do the same thing. Brunson likes to charge in with his chin straight in the air. But it wasn't like it was some counter shot. I mean, you hit him with a head kick that was pretty damn clean. So, it wasn't a counter shot. It was an offensive move. So that was pretty badass on Jacare's part. And I do feel like he's a little bit rejuvenated in Florida with Julian Williams, one of the most underrated guys outside of the UFC, actually. A lot of people don't know about my boy Julian Williams. Look him up. He's absolutely legit. So now it comes down to where's this fight going to take place? Because we know Kelvin, he's been training at Kings MMA. He's got great footwork. He wants to keep this on the outside. He wants to pop that jab. He wants to throw some big strikes. He wants to knock out a guy like Jacare. Jacare seems to find a way to get these guys down to the mat. So, based on the film, I think he's going to find a way to get Kelvin down. And when he does, man, I think it'll be over shortly after. So, I'm going to go with Jacare via submission. Main event of the evening. We got Amanda the Lioness Nunes. She's minus 1,100. The comeback on Raquel Rocky Pennington is plus 700. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this, man. Rocky Pennington's no slouch. Rocky Pennington's a big girl. Rocky Pennington can take a shot. I'm not convinced Amanda Nunes has, a minus 1,000 type performance, because when you have a minus 1,100 favorite, you better have Kylan Curran on the other fucking side, Shaq. And Amanda has had gas tank issues in the past. Look, she paced herself against a counter striker in Valentina, but as you know, man, this is a completely different style, because Rocky, in my opinion at least, is like a Barberena or a Darren Elkins for the female bantamweight division. It doesn't look the prettiest, but if you slow down on someone like Barberena or Elkins or Pennington, they will tee off on you. And you factor in those 2 extra rounds, because this is a championship fight. Rocky definitely has a path to victory. All that said, there's other factors and intangibles to consider as well, because Rocky hasn't fought since the last time Conor McGregor fought in the UFC. I'm talking November 2016. I'm talking UFC 205, and she's coming off a big injury, a surgery. There's lots of questions if she'll be in her best form. So all that being said, Shaq, you going with the minus 1,100 favorite or the plus 700 dog?
Yeah, and I think the line's another complete joke. Like you were mentioning before, Rocky is the workman of that division. She, like you said, the Barberina, the Elkins, or the Gritsmock or whatever. She's the workman of that division. Yeah, she does eat quite a bit of punches, but that's her style. And a lot of people are forgetting that Amanda Nunes is a quitter, man. You know what I'm saying? Let's not forget at UFC 196 she completely quit against Valentina. I know because I bet on Valentina in that fight, I think too. I mean, she flat out quitting her now. So that quit is still there. You just have to bring it out of her. And the thing is, when you're fighting Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate, who, I mean, like, come on, should I have to explain that? Like, Ronda was done, Miesha was done. Those are the Stone Age pioneers of the sport. You know what I'm saying? That style had to get out. And when you talk about Valentina in the rematch, I mean, damn, Valentina's one of the most predictable fighters in that division. I mean, Valentina only throws like three different strikes, you know, a right hook, a spinning back fist, and the occasional left kick. I mean, if someone can tell me anything else she throws, I'd really like to know. So, and I mean, that fight, we could have easily been saying something else different if she didn't go for a head and arm throw with a minute left. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I feel like a lot of people are forgetting who Amanda Nunes is. I do think that she has gotten a little better with her pacing and with her like her heart. I mean, I guess she's gotten a little tougher, but the thing is, it's a different style because, like we were saying, Valentina's a counter striker. Rocky's going to get in her face and willingly eat punches to accomplish her mission, man. So that might drain Amanda Nunes' cardio a little faster because we know Nunes gets a little bit excited. If she thinks you're hurt, she will empty that gas tank on you. So I think the line's a complete joke. Yeah, Rocky's coming out the layoff. And another thing about Rocky is she really hasn't fought anyone on this level. I mean, I think her last ones are Betch Kohei, Elizabeth Phillips, and Miesha Tate. You know, Miesha Tate sucks. Elizabeth Phillips in the UFC.
And Jessica Andrade, who's in a different weight class, but still a badass.
Yeah, I mean, and you know the deal with Andrade at 135. I mean, she was a quitter at 135. So, you know, this is definitely the best fighter she's fought, in my opinion. So I can't really say how she's going to do against this level, but to have it minus 1100 is a fucking joke because, I mean, Rocky is a workman, and she's just that type of chick that embraces this type of stuff, man. So I'm going to go with the Nunes just because of the layoff, and I do think she is the better overall fighter. I do think she is, I think she is getting better across the board. I do think she's a better fighter across the board in every aspect. But, I mean, if she starts to slow down, don't be shocked when she starts quitting because, you know, there's a few chicks that, you know, like how we were saying, like about Rose Namajunas, you know what I'm saying? She did have a good performance, but there's certain girls, if you can push Rose to a certain point, she'll quit. If you can get Sarah McMahon into the second round, she's going to quit. If you can get Amanda Nunes' energy done, she will quit. So it wouldn't shock me at all if Rocky put off the upset.
No, I feel you 100%, man, because I do think Rocky is a tough stylistic matchup for her. It's just about, you know, what kind of shape is Rocky in after that surgery, after that injury, because it was a serious one. And I think if you're looking for an angle to play this fight at, obviously you're not going to play Amanda Nunes minus 1100. It's a complete joke, doesn't add any value to anything. So, you know, maybe take a half unit shot on Rocky, or maybe look at the over, maybe look at not Amanda Nunes inside the distance. There's a lot of options here. I think the most likely outcome is Amanda Nunes goes out there and wins a decision. I think the later rounds could get a little bit sketchy because we know about Rocky's style, but all in all, look, she's minus 1100 for a reason, but it should be closer to where it opened. And where it opened, man, was, you know, around minus 530, which is still maybe a little bit wide, but minus 530 compared to minus 1100, a little bit more reasonable in my opinion. So I'm going to go with Amanda Nunes via decision. You know, Rocky hasn't been finished in her entire UFC career. The two fights that she did lose were very close decisions, so they were both split decisions, actually. So, you know, she's a tough, durable chick. I think she'll survive the 5-round distance. We'll find out what happens on fight night. Now we got to hit up Kyle Marley for the Big Marley Minute. And joining us now on the Big Marley Minute is Big Marley himself. Kyle, how's it going, man? It's been a while.
Yeah, it has, man. It was a break. I really needed the break, actually, but I'm itching for some more MMA now, so I cannot wait for these fights.
Oh, yeah, you feeling refreshed? You feeling Back to get this money this weekend?
Yeah, man, I feel like I got my mojo back and I'm ready to go.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot because the main event of the evening between Amanda Nunes and Rocky Pennington, we're looking at a minus 1,100 favorite, and Amanda Nunes, the comeback on Rocky, is plus 700. We know, I know my boy Kyle ain't selling any minus 1,100 bets over there. So what I want to know, man, is do you see value on the plus 700 dog here?
No, man. I mean, honestly, I've seen a lot of people say that this line is crazy. She shouldn't be that big of a favorite. But they're not betting it, and they're not betting it for a reason, and that's because plus 700 is still not good enough, man. I don't know how she gets it done. I'd probably need plus 1,000 to even take a stab at it because I feel like I'm throwing away money if I do that. But, yeah, man, Nunes is going to be better everywhere. If this stays on the feet, she's just going to piece her up and probably get a TKO out of it. But if she wants, she could take it to the ground and dominate there as well. I think it's just about how she wants to fight, when she wants to finish, and she's really going to do anything she wants to do. I'm going to say she's going to get a finish here, and she could be worth the price tag of $9,500. Cash for sure. I'm just going to throw her in my lineup. 'Cause I'm going to lock that win in, and then I'll try and find some more elsewhere. But GPPs would be the spot for me to not fade her, but have not 100% of her because she is 9,500. So it's tough to get her in your lineup with the dogs that I'm not really confident in. So cash, I'm just going to lock her in, and I'll probably have maybe 50 to 60% in GPPs just so I can stay above the field.
So my boy Kyle Marley is saying that we need $3 more in order for us to take a shot on Rocky Pennington.
Yeah, I mean, if that happens, maybe I can take a one-unit stab at that.
So a very hyped matchup between Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Bobby Cooper. You know, it opened minus 530 for Dern. A lot of action has come in on Bobby Cooper. Now, it's interesting because she's got 3 submission losses. Are you seeing the way the public's going, man, or are you kind of siding here with the odds maker and taking the big favorite Dern to win this one by submission?
Man, I kind of like both sides of this because if you are going to get Nunes, you need to get those dogs somewhere, and Cooper just allows you to get her and some other favorites in there. So I don't mind Cooper for a price at 7,100 with all the things we've heard Dern say with the camp moving and how she's not trying to be in the gym all the time, grinding, and she wants a break after this fight. So, I mean, I'll take some stabs at Cooper. However, I think she's going to be pretty popular. So Dern really might be the play here in GPPs because I think Cooper might even be more popular than Dern. So if Dern wins and scores really high, then that kills all the Cooper lineups and also gives you leverage on the field. So I would say maybe Cooper would be a good cash play and Dern a better GPP play.
Sharp analysis. That's why we have the Big Marley Minute on Half the Battle. And look, John Lineker's taking on Brian Kelleher. Look, I have a feeling these two are going to stand and bang. It's going to be very exciting. But usually when guys beat Brian Kelleher, they beat him via submission. He's never been stopped via strikes. I think he's a durable guy. That being said, he's never been hit by someone that hits as hard as Hands of Stone Lineker. So you thinking the minus 250 favorite gets it done here?
Yeah, I think so, especially in Brazil. I think it is going to be mostly standing. Maybe Kelleher will go for a couple takedowns here and there. But ultimately, I see a decision happening with Lineker getting his hand raised. The problem is he's 9,000 on DraftKings, so would you rather go with him or Dern or someone else around that area? I like him, but I also like maybe Kelleher as well in cash games because I do think it's going to go to a decision. So within that 3 rounds, he's going to rack up some points himself. So I don't really mind Kelleher in cash games, but again, I'd rather have Lineker in my GPPs.
So Machida and Vitor are going to fight. Now, I was kind of surprised by the line. I know we spoke about this off air. I thought it was going to be a little bit closer, but then again on fight week, when you see my boy Vitor with the bathrobe at the stare downs, you see him with the emotional support dog, you see Lyoto Machida is a lot more focused. I see why Machida is the favorite. I just don't know if he should be minus 275. What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, I really want to avoid this fight. If anything, I'm going to go with Belfort just because he's cheap. He's 7,300, and if he's going to win, he's going to get a knockout. So he'll get that $7,300 worth in value. But Machida, on the other hand, man, this could be a real boring decision with Machida getting his hand raised. And he just came off of a 5-round win over Anders where he only scored 61 fantasy points in 5 rounds. So I'd rather just fade him at 8,900 and go with Belfort if I'm picking somebody in this fight.
And just to emphasize what you said, because I would assume his price tag was probably around 7,300 for that fight, you think?
His price tag was, exactly 7,300. And still, I mean, he didn't even 10x that. So yeah, I don't really want him at 89, but he could ruin my day and go out there and just get a first round knockout and have 110 points and just kill me. But I'm gonna take that risk.
Yeah, all I gotta say is when you can't cover a $73 price tag and you win a 5-round decision, that's all I gotta say. You should probably be avoiding him, huh?
Yeah, I'll be passive.
So Junior Albini is taking on Alexi, and look, Albini, he kind of let a lot of people down that last one against Arlovsky, but prior to that, he knocked out Tim Johnson. Alexi, we know that 80% of his wins are via submission. It's an interesting striker versus grappler matchup. Which way you going?
I like both sides on this one. Fight doesn't go to decision is minus 245. And they're both right there in the mid range. So whoever's going to win is going to outscore their price. I prefer Albini. So if I was making one lineup, he would be in it. But I'm going to have some Oleinik as well. I think this is a good fight to throw 100% of your lineups on because I do see the winner scoring high.
Davi Ramos is taking on Nick Hein. Look, Nick Hein's a guy that goes out there. He wins a lot of UFC fights. He's 5-1, 6-1 in the UFC. The only loss coming to the Texecutioner Vic. But Davi Ramos is a little powerhouse, especially at 155 pounds. Which way you leaning?
I think I'm going to go with Davi in this one because it ends in Brazil. That's really the final deciding factor for me. I've been going back and forth on this, so I might fade it overall. But I think I'm landing on Ramos as my pick here. I just don't know if I want him or how much I want of him in my lineup. So I'm going to say I'm going to fade this as of now, but we'll see what happens. Ramos is the pick.
Elizeu Zaleski is taking on Sean Strickland. It's such an underrated matchup. I mean, anytime Zaleski fights, it's an absolute war. Sean Strickland, one of the most underrated guys in the game with a 19-2 record. I know if this was in Vegas, you might be leaning a certain way, but it is in Brazil, so which way you going?
Yeah, I mean, it is in Brazil, so I was originally leaning Dos Santos for that reason, but they're both 8,100 on DraftKings, so really what's making my decision is the line movement. Dos Santos is now minus 135, so ownership is all going to go to him. I think Strickland will be very low owned, so I like Strickland in tournaments here, but I will not throw either one of these in a cash game if I was making a lineup, and I wanted to be contrarian to maybe try to win that $25,000 in the $10 contest. Strickland could be a good pick there. If he can get this W with his wrestling game, then he could score high, and more people are going to be on Dos Santos than Strickland, that's for sure.
So Warlley Alves is fighting Sultan Aliev. Now, it's interesting because Warlley, for a 27-year-old, he's already accomplished a lot. You know, he finished Nordine, he finished Colby, he beat Juban. He had to take his first 2 setbacks. Now, what I'm trying to wonder here, Kyle, is because of those 2 setbacks to guys that push very high paces in Kamaru Usman and Brian Barberena, do you think he's going to be less owned because the hype has kind of come down a little bit and this is a spot where we can kind of take advantage of everyone being off the Warlley train, or do you think he'll be highly owned as usual?
No, I don't really think he's going to be highly owned just because of all the big favorites on this card. Most people are going to flock up to Nunes or Perez or Oleinik or something like that. So I think Alves will go a little bit under owned just because he's up there and people would rather pay for those other people. So he could be a sneaky play here, and he comes out firing every fight. So he could get a first-round finish, and ideally, if you're on Warlley here, he gets a late first-round finish and racks up all those points and advances and takedowns, and he gets that 90 points on the first-round finish bonus. So he could be a great play here. I'm just having a hard time seeing how this plays out. I am afraid of Russians, so it's hard picking against them. So I might have a little bit of both of them, but I'll be underweight to the field no matter what I do.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if Sultan Aliev's name was, James Johnson or, you know what I'm saying, or Mike Smith, it'd be minus 400 Warlley right now.
Yeah, I mean, if that was his name, I wouldn't be as afraid.
Yeah, and then when you see that Aliev, it's like, oh, man, he's Russian. You got to be careful. But, look, Jack Hermansson's taking on Thales Leites, and we know Jack Hermansson went 0-2 in his first 2 stops in Brazil, but now he's not taking on an athletic specimen. He's taking on a guy on his way out. You think third time's going to be the charm for Jack the Joker?
Yeah, I think he's my pick in this one. He's only 8,300 on DraftKings. If he's going to get a win, he could pay that off. He'll probably need a TKO at some point to do it, I think. I'm also worried about picking against the Brazilian in Brazil here, so I won't have too much Hermansson, but he's definitely on my radar, and I'll have him in a couple lineups. He's my pick for sure. I think I'll probably fade Thales here.
A fight that's really flying under the radar. I think it's an incredible fight. Ramazan Emeev versus Alberto Mina. Both these guys, I mean, I know my boy Mina's getting up there in age, but I would still consider him a prospect at 170 pounds. And obviously, we know the kind of performance Ramazan just had against Sam Alvey. Now he's moving down to 170. Which way you leaning?
Again, man, I'm afraid of those Russians. So if his name was different, maybe I'd have some more Mina in my lineups.
But see, this guy's actually good, though.
Say what?
I said this guy's actually good, though.
Yeah, he's good. I mean, but if I'm making one lineup and I have to have someone here, I think I'd rather just save the money and do $76 or $7,500 Mina and hope he can get that early finish, maybe a submission if Emeev is trying to take it to the ground. I could see him wrapping up a submission. But at the same time, my pick to win is Emeev. So it's either going to be I'm going to fade it or I'm going to go both ways on this. I'm probably going to make 20 lineups total this week, so maybe I'll have like 2 or 3 of each, but I'm not going to go too heavy on them.
The curtain jerker, Markus Maluka Perez, he's taking on James Boknovic. Now, I have a sneaking suspicion that even though Boknovic has an 81-inch reach, 8-inch reach advantage, and he's 6'4" at 185 pounds, I feel like he might not belong in the big show, and I think the minus 325 price tag might be warranted here. But from a DraftKings perspective, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I like Perez here. It's probably a Boknovic fade and pay up for Perez where I can afford him. I like his inside the distance odds of minus 140, so he's got a really good shot of scoring high. The only problem is he's right there under Nunes and right above Dern. So you can't have all 3 of them, so you got to pick your spots. I'll have some of him and none of Boknovic, but I won't be 100% on him, that's for sure.
Well, Kyle, that's why you are the DraftKings guy for half the battle. It's good to catch up again, man. It's been a while, and it doesn't stop here for 224 because next week we got a big card with UFC Chile as well.
That's right, man. Can't wait. Glad we don't have another break coming.
Absolutely. All the fans, make sure you follow Kyle at Big Marley 3. Kyle, any message for them before we talk next week?
Nah, man. Good luck, everybody. Hopefully we can win some money.
Yes, we will win some money. That is a guarantee. Kyle, we'll speak soon, buddy.
All right, man. Take care.
And once again, that's why Kyle Marley is the DraftKings guy for half the battle. Now, Shaq, we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC 224?
My fight to watch is going to be Elizeu, Zaleski, Dos Santos, or Sean Strickland. I think this is going to be I'm interested to see if Zaleski can get Strickland to open up a little bit more because I think Strickland could possibly be like a super underrated guy for the division, and I think Elizeu can be as well. I mean, we've been behind Elizeu for a long time. I think the winner of this fight is in a top 15 position. At least going to fight a top 15 guy next. Both of these guys are putting work along the way. I mean, just look at who Elizeu's beating: Amari, Keitaro, Lyman Good, Max Griffin, some super underrated guys. And Sean Strickland, 19-2 record. When he was the first guy to beat Tom Breeze, that win over Alex Garcia. So winner of that fight's going to be in a prime position at 170.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, anytime you get a fight with Elizeu, Zaleski, Dos Santos, you have to be tuning in. Put him in there with a winner like Sean Strickland with a 19-2 record. In Brazil, it has all the recipes for a fight of the night. I can't wait to watch that one. But for me personally, it has to be Kelvin Gastelum versus Ronaldo Jacare Souza because I want to know, is Kelvin Gastelum going to finally get over that hump and beat a top 5 guy? Because, look, he's got some great wins on his resume. I mean, he beat Tim Kennedy. He beat Vitor Belfort. He went out there and beat Michael Bisping, but now he's got to go in there against a current active top 5 guy in Ronaldo Jacare Souza. This is a spot that he stumbled on in the past, when he fought Woodley, when he fought Weidman, even when he fought Magny at the time. So now he's got to prove, look, if I'm a title contender, if I'm a title challenger, I got to be able to beat Jacare. And for Jacare, he's still waiting on his first UFC title shot. He feels like he should have got that title shot a long time ago. So for him, he needs to come out here and not just beat a guy like Kelvin Gastelum. He has to finish Kelvin Gastelum to prove that, hey, I want to swim with the Sharks at 185 pounds. I want to get in there with Yoel Romero, with Robert Whittaker one more time and test my luck out. So the winner of this fight is going to be in a big place in the middleweight division. Now, Shaq, who is the fighter to watch for UFC 224?
A fighter to watch is going to be Boom Brian Kelleher, man. I mean, another thing is he is undefeated against Brazilians. He already took out Yuri and he already took out Henan. I mean, now this is his 3rd one. This is definitely the best Brazilian spot. But, I mean, if he can pull this off, bro, I mean, this guy went from being, your Friday night jobber to being a top 10 UFC fighter. I mean, let's put it this way. When Henan Barral was champion of the UFC, Brian Kelleher was getting submitted by Andy Main. So if he can pull this one off and beat a top 5 guy, perennial top 5 guy, I mean, that'll be huge for Brian Kelleher. That would have been, he would have went down to Brazil twice and beat their countryman. So he's my fighter to watch. He's super marketable in my opinion. He's got a super tough fight, but if he wins this, man, just don't be shocked when they're pushing Brian Kelleher very heavy.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get a fight with John Lineker and you put him in there with a guy like Brian Kelleher, I mean, this is definitely one of the fights to watch, and Kelleher is definitely one of your fighters to watch. For me, the fighter to watch is Warlley Alves. Look, man, he's, for a kid that's only 27 years old, he already's been in there with Nordine, with Juban, with Colby Covington. He came out victorious in all those fights. He had to take his first 2 L's to Barberena and Kamaru Usman. Now he's starting a new streak. He went out there, he defeated the young kid in Poland. Now he's got a chance to come back to Brazil, to his homeland, and defeat a very tough Russian, a guy that wins most of the fights he's in Sultan Aliev. And I feel like if Warlley gets that momentum, we're going to be seeing him back in those top 25 matchups once again. You know, we could be looking at, Warlley Alves versus Elizeu, Zaleski, and Sean Strickland. We could be looking at those kind of fights potentially. So Warlley Alves is my fighter to watch for UFC 224. Well, Shaq, it's going down this Saturday. They already know what to do. They got to go to bestfightpicks.com. We got 2 consensus max bets this weekend. If you want 15% off, use the promo code Matador. But as you already know, Shaq threw out this promotion. If you buy the 1 event VIP package for this weekend, and for some reason it doesn't profit, which by the way it will profit, but if for some reason it doesn't profit, we'll offer you the next 2 events free. Isn't that right, Shaq?
100%. And I mean, if you wanna use the 15% off on that 1 event VIP package, go ahead. But like we said, if it does not win, which it will win, you get the next 2 events free. So I suggest everyone hop on that. Send us an email at bestfightpicks@gmail.com if you have any questions. We answer all emails, all DMs on Best Fight Picks Official. I mean, we're here to share the gift of Max Bet season with everyone.
Absolutely. Huge weekend right now. Big weekend next week in Chile. Cannot wait. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Best Fight Picks Official. Follow me on Twitter at Best Fight Picks. Follow Shaq at MMA Genius 05. Subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher. Hook up those 5-star reviews on iTunes. Shaq and I will be back next week to break down UFC Chile. Another big card, another opportunity. So until the next time, let's cash these bets.